part of some of the responsibilities that I've had throughout the years have been dealing with disgruntled clients and client complaints. And I find that a lot of the time, the main reason why clients are dissatisfied for a service is not because our medicine hasn't been the correct one, or our treatment hasn't been optimal. I would say 8 out of 10 times it's mainly to do with a pure communication, whether the client felt like things weren't explained enough, or whether things weren't actually explained enough, or whether the client doesn't have an understanding of the value of what we're doing. And that's such an important thing, educating clients to the value of what you're doing, not so much the monetary value, but the importance of it. And I know this is a really hard word to digest as a vet, but selling it, right? And selling in the sense that you are trying to sell or convince the client to do things for the welfare of their pet. So you are selling, you are selling the patient's health, right? You're trying to convince this client that this is the best. So if the client has a poor understanding of the value, and let's just say that they've spent quite a lot of money and they don't have an answer, if they would have understood from the get-go that these are all complementary tests that will allow us to, let's say, rule out something, and not necessarily give us the diagnosis, and we are educating the client along the way about the process of our treatment plan, perhaps these complaints wouldn't occur. So like I said, I feel personally that the most common cause of client complaints is going to be communication. So if we do our best to communicate clearly, thoroughly, but most importantly empathetically, there'll be less, right? So what to do when you have a disgruntled client? Well, I found that I never actually got taught anything. I just did it, just wing it. But what I have found in my bit of experience is that what clients want is to be heard, is to be somebody to listen to what they have to say. Whether it makes sense or not, they want to be heard. They felt away, and that has caused them to be upset or angry, and they just want to tell somebody about it. So the most important thing when dealing with a client that is upset is just to listen and take the time to listen to them without interrupting them, paraphrasing what they're saying back to them, to allow them to understand that not only are you listening, but you are paying attention. So you are actually getting some of what they're saying, and you're getting you're giving them back to them, as a way of showing them. That's really important. The other thing that I find is really helpful is to focus the attention on the pet itself. So allowing because at the end of the day, they love their pet, they love their dog, their cat, their bird, whatever it is, they love it. And the reason why they came to see you initially is because they care about it. So to focus the attention on the pet actually allows them to understand that your main worry or your main concern is the welfare of the pet. So it's not necessarily deviating from the actual complaint, but putting the focus on what's important. And that allows the client to first to know that you care. It's not just about another patient, and using the patient's name and showing empathy and care goes a long way, and sometimes just that is enough to settle a client. I think it's important, right, that you can gather the correct information, because clients, if they're fueled by an emotion, they either will misinterpret or don't remember the actual facts correctly, and you might be getting yourself trapped in that if you don't get the correct information. Sometimes it's just a matter of telling the client, hey, I want to hear you, I want to listen to you, I know so and so, or this happened, and I just want to listen to you and how you feel, and I just want to learn a little bit more about this. This allows the client to understand that you're there to listen to them, that you actually care, and they'll give you everything. They'll give you everything that they have on the chest. If you're not prepared with the information at the time, sometimes it's best to say to them, look, just leave this with me. I'm gonna carry out an investigation. This in itself, shows the client that their feelings or concerns are taken seriously. So you tell them that you're gonna carry out an investigation and find out exactly what happened, and then we can discuss this in a bit more detail. So once you gather all the information, then you can talk with facts, right? And at the end of the day, it's not going to be a fight between you and them, because at the end you want to settle this argument, settle this complaint, right? I guess sometimes you do have to pick your battle to see whether it's worth the effort. Sometimes people are just unreasonable, and they're just sorry for the Spanish, but they're just dicks. So you have to pick your battle. But if it's a good client that you care for and has been with you for a long time, or if the concern or complaint is valid, then you do want to take the time, right? So yeah, like I said, I think listening to them it's really important. Listening to them, I think, does more than 50% of the whole thing. It's important to remember that it doesn't matter what you say to a client. The only thing that matters is how you make them feel. So if whatever you did made them feel a certain way, they'll pick on the fact that you didn't put a thermometer up the dog's bum, and that in itself would be the complaint. You didn't take a temperature. So I think it's important to go back to see what exactly happened that made this client feel a certain way. Yeah, like I said, it's not easy, and I still get a little bit anxious when things happen. But I find that if you come in with good intentions and an open mind, and clients can perceive that you're not there to fight them, they know that you care about them or their pet. Sometimes that's enough to get you through the other end and settle this. Sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes somebody has actually made a mistake or said the wrong thing or whatever. Sometimes you just have to accept the fact that you've done something wrong and try to make amends, and that's okay. Obviously, if you are in the position of having these conversations, you may or may not have the power to make this type of decisions regarding, in indemnization, giving money back or refunding or all of that. If not, obviously you need to get somebody above you to approve this, right? And I find that it's important to get other perspectives. I've learned a lot from, my boss, for example. She has another perspective on things, and I sometimes, I sometimes do take the human side when I perhaps have missed an important point, right? Or an important perspective, just because I'm focused on the human side. So getting somebody else's opinion, I think it's really important. Getting somebody else that doesn't necessarily look at it from a vet perspective, like a business perspective is, or managerial perspective. I think it's important because there are aspects of these issues that sometimes we vets miss. I think this is a big, obviously, conversation and a big kind of worms to open. But I think if I have a bit of experience with this is what I've learned. I've learned to take time and listen, to empathize, to paraphrase, to focus on the pet, to show them that we care, show them that we take the time, and that their words are not just going to be forgotten, that you actually take feedback seriously, right? And look, I am, I don't have the facts to prove this, but I think I've been fairly successful at conflict resolution, especially with clients. I'm not gonna lie, I've had I have 2 board complaints, both of which were dismissed, and that's another matter in itself. But that's just, sometimes people are just possible to deal with, and these are a couple of them. So yeah, find help if you need help, reach out, support each other, and yeah, that's all I have. Happy Monday.